We live in a subdivision with an HOA. The HOA is not super picky, but one of the things you have to have is a white mailbox, and you have to keep it in order so it doesn't look shabby. So we're going to replace this one, and we're going to replace it with a plastic stand that will look good all the time, and we'll actually continue to use the same box top and put it on. We're going to try and use a 4x4 with this spike that goes in so that we don't have to dig the hole and do the concrete. My first step this morning is to remove the old box. I could just tear it right out. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the rocks away from the bottom, and I'm going to cut it off with the reciprocating saw so that it kind of comes out in one piece, and then I'll take it apart and take the box off. This mailbox actually held on with nails, so I'm going to, there's one nail on this side and looks like one nail on the other side, so I'm going to pop those nails off first, and I'm going to just use a flat bar to do it. So if you look, the nail is right here. So what I'm going to try to do is kind of push this out a little bit first, and then push the side of the mailbox in to create a little bit to get in behind it. And then I'm going to try to use this piece of wood. So I am going to use this 4x4 holder, but as you can see, it's got a little piece that sits above the ground here, and I need that to be hidden in here. Now it almost fits, but where it comes out like this to screw together to hold the 4x4, it doesn't fit in. So what I've done is I've just taken a marker and marked that, and I'm going to use my jigsaw with the fine blade just to cut that out. Normally I might use snips, but it's a little cool this morning out, and I just don't want, sometimes plastic will shatter. And it works. I'm going to measure the 4x4 so that it comes to the very top inside of the mailbox post exterior. So what I'm going to do is just kind of lay a speed square down on that. You know, sometimes wearing gloves makes your job freaking harder. And obviously this doesn't have to be exact, but you want to put the mark around because your skill saw will not go through the whole thing. If you have a chop saw, you could go through the whole thing at one time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this so that we can put in the post, and I'll show you how we're going to do that in just a second. On this post, there are some places where you can screw it in after it's in. I want these to be in the back. Now normally that wouldn't really matter, but I also cut a little hole for where my post goes in, so I need those two to line up when I go to do this. So I'm gonna have to make it so that it lines up like this with the piece that sticks out in the back. And normally I wouldn't care, but because I don't want to screw it in from the back and it's kind of got those pre-indents, I don't want it to look goofy. Also, I am moving the post a little bit to the right to avoid the concrete, and also just a little bit forward from where it was before because it was kind of tucked back in a little too far. I nipped off that 4x4 so to make it lower so I can actually hit it. It was a little too high and couldn't get good leverage. Also, I don't have a sledgehammer, so I'm having to use my axe. I'm tightening this up now. One of the things you have to watch for, this did tilt a little bit. It should be like this, and it's tilted a little bit more. It hit a rock down near the once it got down in there, so I'm going to try to straighten it out a little bit and put some heavy rocks just to keep it a little more straight, but it was down so far and I really couldn't get it back out. So it's not hideously off, but that's one thing you do need to watch as you're pounding this in, that it can hit rocks and kind of twist around as you're going down. But I'm gonna get this secured, then we'll get the white post on, and then we'll start dealing with the top. We're gonna put the top on here. Get that pushed to there. This is the top to the new post, and here is the mailbox. Now you can see these are two different sizes. So what I'm going to try to do is use these long deck screws that I have to kind of center it and put those in to hold it in place so that it will actually work rather than getting another piece of wood to put underneath the bottom of this. So I've got these real long deck screws, so I should be able to keep it centered, put multiple screws in from each thing, and it'll be sturdy. These ones will go on later because they are going to go directly into the post. Now that I have this screwed onto the bottom, I'm going to place it on the top, and I'm going to put the last two screws in, which will actually go in to the top of the post, which is why I didn't put them on already. I'm going to put that on there. Oh, that looks good. And then basically, just like the other screws that I was putting in, I'm going to put these in. That's going to go all the way in. Okay, so that went all the way through just like the other ones we put in already, but because it was going to go into the post as well, I had to wait till I put it on the post. And of course, you can always put a 1x8 piece for a larger mailbox like this underneath it, but I didn't have a piece, and I figured these screws would hold it, and they're actually holding it quite well. And the mailbox is still a little bit tacky, so I didn't want to manhandle it too much. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some additional screws in the pre-drilled areas. I'm going to use the screws that came with the kit and go ahead and put those in. They provide you with a white painted screw head from the factory. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in, and what this is doing is it's securing the top to the post. You don't want to over tighten those because it's just plastic they're going into with a little bit of wood in behind it. Going to do the same thing on the other side. So there's 4 pre-drilled holes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the factory white painted head screws in there. That will secure it directly into the 4x4. So I have some paint left over from when I painted the gas cans for the rescue wagon. This is Rust-Oleum 2X in apple red. We're going to give this flag for the mailbox a quick shot just because it looks kind of dingy. I'm going to get this little plastic piece too. Going to put the flag back on. The flag's still a little tacky, so I'm going to be very careful when I put it on and just let it sit up against there. I'm not going to move it. So this turned out pretty nice. Glad that I painted the little red flag as well. Painted the box, put the white stand in, so looks real nice, and it's a little taller. My other mailbox was kind of short for some reason. So remember, doing things yourself allows you to be free.